They told you the world is shaped by circumstances. And what if I tell you that everything you see, touch, and feel is born from your imagination? And I will reveal how this hidden power is already within you, waiting to be awakened. I will reveal how belief can rewrite reality itself. And I will reveal the secret that those who master this art move mountains without ever leaving their minds. This is how it unfolds, as Neville Goddard stepped into consciousness like a quiet storm, showing that imagination is not mere fantasy, but the blueprint of destiny. This is where the illusion deepens, because what we perceive as external reality is nothing more than a reflection of inner assumptions, a mirror of the thoughts we accept as true. This is why it matters, because understanding this flips the ordinary perception of life upside down, revealing that power is never outside, it is within. This is the turning point, when ordinary men and women begin to see that imagining a fulfilled desire is identical to living it. And that sensation is the bridge between dream and manifestation. This is how freedom announces itself. For once you grasp this principle, you realize that no circumstance can dictate your reality unless you allow it. This is why circumstances lose power, as you begin to inhabit your inner world more vividly than the external, shaping events effortlessly. This is how destiny is rewritten, with each act of imagination forming ripples that converge into tangible outcomes. This is the threshold of wonder, where the line between thought and experience becomes porous, inviting miracles into everyday life. This is how belief becomes the architect, constructing worlds from the raw clay of intention and feeling. This is where subtlety wields enormous strength, because the smallest imagined act can ripple into monumental changes. This is how the subconscious is enlisted, as every sensation and imagined moment impresses upon it, forging new pathways for reality to follow. This is why persistence is key, as repetition and vividness anchor your assumptions into the fabric of existence. This is the awakening of perception, when the mind perceives not what is, but what could be, and in that space, creation blooms. This is how the end is embraced, seeing desires fulfilled with the same certainty as a sunrise, feeling them as present realities. This is where imagination becomes sacred, a temple in which you dwell to shape your world. This is how consciousness claims dominion, quietly orchestrating events while seeming to wait for external permission. This is why time itself bends, as the act of assuming the wish fulfilled collapses past, present, and future into a singular, vibrant reality. This is how vision translates into existence, through disciplined focus and emotional conviction. This is how the mind's theater becomes the stage of life, where every scene is authored from within. This is the moment Neville Goddard gifts you, a revelation that life need not be random, but is a canvas of your deliberate imagining. Can you imagine a world where your thoughts do not merely float in your mind but carve the very path of your life? And as the layers peel back, you begin to see that imagination is the ultimate force shaping reality. This is how it unfolds, as Neville taught that every external circumstance is simply a reflection of your inner state, a mirror that cannot lie. This is where the illusion deepens, because most people believe the world shapes them. Yet the truth is that consciousness precedes form and gives it life. This is why it matters, for when you grasp that your inner assumptions dictate events, fear and limitation lose their grip instantly. This is the turning point, where the ordinary act of thinking transforms into a sacred act of creation, and each mental image becomes a seed planted in the fertile soil of the subconscious. This is how freedom announces itself, when you realize you no longer need to wait for conditions to align, but can instead orchestrate them from within. This is why circumstances lose power, as external obstacles dissolve in the face of unwavering inner conviction. This is how destiny is rewritten, because assuming the state you desire changes the trajectory of every encounter, every decision, and every fleeting moment. This is the threshold of wonder, where the mind discovers that imagining the fulfilled desire with feeling is indistinguishable from living it. This is how belief becomes the architect, designing the contours of your life with precision and creativity. This is where subtlety wields enormous strength, as the depth of feeling and clarity of assumption impress themselves onto the subconscious effortlessly. This is how the subconscious is enlisted, becoming a tireless servant that molds events to match the reality you persistently entertain. This is why persistence is key. For repeated assumption, vivid and emotionally charged, becomes the invisible force pulling circumstances into alignment. This is the awakening of perception. Noticing that the world outside bends in response to the world inside, and every thought carries weight. This is how the end is embraced, living in the completion of your desires mentally and emotionally before it appears physically. This is where imagination becomes sacred, a laboratory for constructing the reality you consciously choose. This is how consciousness claims dominion, silently scripting the events of your life with quiet precision. This is why time itself bends, as assuming the feeling of fulfillment accelerates its manifestation, making patience a tool, not a barrier. This is how vision translates into existence, bridging the invisible and the tangible seamlessly. This is how the mind's theater becomes the stage of life, where you are both director and actor, shaping scenes with deliberate intention. This is the moment Neville Goddard gifts you, the understanding that imagination is not optional. It is the core principle of all creation. Now consider this. What if every face you see, every event you encounter, and every circumstance surrounding you is nothing more than a reflection of your inner consciousness? And as the layers peel back, you start to see that mastering your inner world rewrites the outer world effortlessly. This is how it unfolds, because Neville revealed that reality is not fixed, and what you assume to be true in your mind becomes the blueprint for everything you experience. This is where the illusion deepens, as most people confuse their perceptions with truth, unaware that perception itself is malleable, shaped by the assumptions they carry. This is why it matters, for when you grasp that consciousness shapes experience, fear, limitation, and doubt lose their authority over your life. This is the turning point, when the ordinary mind awakens to the extraordinary power it holds, realizing that the external world cannot impose unless you consent internally. This is how freedom announces itself, as the realization dawns that imagination is not play, but the tool through which reality is engineered. This is why circumstances lose power, for events, people, and conditions simply mirror what has already been impressed upon your consciousness. This is how destiny is rewritten, because by controlling your inner assumptions, you influence the unfolding of all moments before they manifest outwardly. This is the threshold of wonder, when the connection between thought and form becomes undeniable, and every inner act carries visible consequence. This is how belief becomes the architect, forming the scaffolding upon which life builds itself in alignment with your vision. This is where subtlety wields enormous strength, as the subconscious mind silently obeys the patterns impressed upon it, without hesitation or question. This is how the subconscious is enlisted, becoming a tireless craftsman that arranges events, circumstances, and encounters to match your inner reality. This is why persistence is key, for repeated mental and emotional focus locks the assumption into the fabric of being until it becomes inevitable. This is the awakening of perception. Noticing synchronicities and shifts that signal the unseen mind is translating imagination into form. This is how the end is embraced, by feeling and living in the state of fulfillment before external confirmation appears. This is where imagination becomes sacred, a laboratory of creation, where every thought, feeling, and image exerts tangible power. This is how consciousness claims dominion, quietly orchestrating outcomes while the world appears to follow its own course. This is why time itself bends, for when the mind assumes the desired state with feeling, the when becomes irrelevant and manifestation accelerates. This is how vision translates into existence, turning mental rehearsal into lived reality with astonishing precision. This is how the mind's theater becomes the stage of life, where imagination and consciousness dictate every scene, and every act is an authored reflection of your inner world. This is the moment Neville Goddard imparts his deepest truth, that mastery of consciousness is mastery over reality itself. Picture for a moment that every emotion you experience is not just a reaction to life, but a tool to shape it. And yet something deeper was waiting. And so Neville revealed that feeling is the bridge between imagination and reality. And I will reveal how mastering emotion accelerates manifestation beyond thought alone. This is how it unfolds, because when you infuse your imagined scene with genuine feeling, it impresses the subconscious, which then orchestrates external events to match that inner state. This is where the illusion deepens, as people often mistake mere visualizing for creating, overlooking that the intensity of emotion transforms thought into tangible results. This is why it matters. For feeling is the language your subconscious understands, translating sensation into action in the unseen realms. This is the turning point, when the ordinary act of imagining becomes electrified with emotion, setting the unseen forces into motion with precision and power. This is how freedom announces itself, because feeling the end result now grants control over outcomes that once seemed dictated by circumstance. This is why circumstances lose power, as emotional conviction overrides doubt and reshapes the apparent limitations of the world. This is how destiny is rewritten, for every heartfelt assumption shifts probabilities until the imagined state materializes effortlessly. This is the threshold of wonder, when joy, gratitude, and confidence become catalysts that align events with your inner vision. This is how belief becomes the architect, for the depth of feeling embedded in your imagination solidifies the design of your unfolding reality. This is where subtlety wields enormous strength, as even a quiet but sustained emotional state can ripple through the subconscious to manifest profound changes. This is how the subconscious is enlisted, because it responds instantly to emotion, adjusting circumstances, encounters, and opportunities to reflect the felt reality. This is why persistence is key, for repeated emotional immersion anchors the assumption into existence, making it inevitable. This is the awakening of perception, noticing that moments when you feel fully aligned often precede miraculous shifts in the external world. This is how the end is embraced, as living in the sensation of fulfillment transforms both mind and matter. This is where imagination becomes sacred, because emotion gives it life, power, and immediacy. This is how consciousness claims dominion, steering events with the subtle but undeniable force of feeling. This is why time itself bends, for when the imagined state is fully felt, manifestation seems instantaneous, transcending conventional timelines. This is how vision translates into existence, with each emotional pulse accelerating the alignment of internal and external realities. This is how the mind's theater becomes the stage of life, where every sensation, however fleeting, can orchestrate destiny with deliberate intent. This is the moment Neville Goddard imparts the essential truth. Imagination alone plants the seed, but feeling nourishes it into the flowering reality you desire. Suppose you discover that everything you desire already exists, not somewhere in the future, but in the vivid reality of your imagination. And as the layers peel back, you begin to see that the end state is the secret doorway to manifestation. And I will reveal how living in this completed state transforms every moment into creation. This is how it unfolds, because when you imagine the final result as fully accomplished, the subconscious mind begins arranging circumstances to mirror that reality effortlessly. This is where the illusion deepens, as most people wait for external confirmation instead of inhabiting the sensation of fulfillment now. This is why it matters, for assuming the end state collapses the distance between desire and reality, aligning your inner world with what is yet to appear. This is the turning point, when mental rehearsal of the fulfilled wish becomes indistinguishable from actual experience, embedding the desired outcome into your consciousness. This is how freedom announces itself, as the mind no longer negotiates with doubt or delay, but moves with certainty toward manifestation. This is why circumstances lose power, because your internal state of completion dominates external appearances, shaping events in its image. This is how destiny is rewritten, for by mentally living in the end state, you rewrite the narrative of your life before the world even takes notice. This is the threshold of wonder, where imagining the fulfillment with vividness and feeling transforms every encounter into a reflection of your chosen reality. This is how belief becomes the architect, as the conviction of the wish fulfilled constructs the framework for all unfolding events. This is where subtlety wields enormous strength, because the mere act of dwelling in the end state quietly impresses the subconscious to orchestrate results. This is how the subconscious is enlisted, tirelessly working to align external events with the state you consistently inhabit. This is why persistence is key, as repeated assumption of the end state locks into existence with unshakable certainty. This is the awakening of perception, noticing that the world bends to match your inner completion before any physical proof emerges. This is how the end is embraced, by feeling the reality of your desire as fully present, as if the story has already been written and performed. This is where imagination becomes sacred, because it is here, in the assumption of the end, that creation is no longer hypothetical but active. This is how consciousness claims dominion, shaping the sequence of events to match the inner reality you occupy effortlessly. This is why time itself bends, as assuming the end state allows manifestation to occur as though the universe has no delay or resistance. This is how vision translates into existence, through the unwavering conviction and lived experience of the completed desire. This is how the mind's theater becomes the stage of life, with every imagined scene acting as a precursor to tangible reality. This is the moment Neville Goddard reveals that mastery of the end state is mastery over the very fabric of existence, turning imagination into destiny. Envision a world where every action, every success, and every encounter can be rehearsed within your mind before it ever manifests externally. And yet something deeper was waiting. And so Neville taught that mental rehearsal is not daydreaming, but the conscious shaping of destiny. And I will reveal how repeated inner enactment primes the subconscious to orchestrate reality. This is how it unfolds, because by vividly imagining scenarios with full sensory detail, you impress the mind with certainty and clarity that the outcome is already accomplished. This is where the illusion deepens, as most people underestimate the power of rehearsal, thinking action in the physical world is primary, while the unseen mind quietly guides everything. This is why it matters, for repeated, detailed visualization aligns your inner state with the desired outcome, making external events follow naturally. This is the turning point, when imagination transforms into a tool for mastery, allowing you to act from a place of inevitability rather than hope or desperation. This is how freedom announces itself, as you begin to recognize that reality is pliable and that mental practice accelerates manifestation. This is why circumstances lose power, because each rehearsal impresses the subconscious with a lived experience of the result, making obstacles irrelevant. This is how destiny is rewritten, for as your inner mind rehearses success and fulfillment, your external life bends to reflect the assumed state. This is the threshold of wonder, when the subtle act of imagining becomes a magnet for events, opportunities, and people aligned with your intention. This is how belief becomes the architect, as repeated mental enactments construct a roadmap for the subconscious to follow faithfully. This is where subtlety wields enormous strength, because rehearsal need not be loud or forceful. Its quiet precision shapes outcomes with effortless elegance. This is how the subconscious is enlisted, turning every detailed scene, every imagined sensation, into instructions that guide reality toward your envisioned state. This is why persistence is key, for repeated practice embeds the desired experience deeply, making it inevitable that circumstances will adjust accordingly. This is the awakening of perception, noticing that synchronicities often emerge shortly after sustained mental rehearsal, signaling unseen forces in motion. This is how the end is embraced, as the mind already knows the outcome and aligns all thoughts, emotions, and actions with it. This is where imagination becomes sacred, a disciplined laboratory where repeated internal enactments shape the external world. This is how consciousness claims dominion, directing events like a silent conductor orchestrating a symphony of manifestation. This is why time itself bends, because what is rehearsed internally accelerates its external appearance, transcending ordinary timelines. This is how vision translates into existence, as repeated mental practice turns intention into lived reality with remarkable precision. This is how the mind's theater becomes the stage of life, where every scene played internally eventually performs itself in the physical world. This is the moment Neville Goddard gifts you the understanding that mental rehearsal is not optional, but essential to the art of deliberate creation. Think of the moment when you realize that the past is not fixed, and yet something deeper was waiting. And so Neville taught that revising memories and imagination can transform the present and future, and I will reveal how reimagining old events can release limitations and unlock new possibilities. This is how it unfolds, because by mentally rewriting moments that once caused pain, disappointment, or fear, you impress the subconscious with a version of reality that empowers rather than restricts. This is where the illusion deepens, as most people believe that what has already happened is immutable, unaware that consciousness itself determines the meaning and influence of every event. This is why it matters, for by consciously altering the interpretation and outcome of past experiences, you reshape the patterns that govern your present circumstances. This is the turning point, when imagination becomes a tool of healing and creation, turning regret into opportunity and failure into insight. This is how freedom announces itself, as you let go of the unseen chains of old memories and reclaim authority over the unfolding story of your life. This is why circumstances lose power, because the past no longer imposes its weight once it is revised and reimagined in alignment with your desired present. This is how destiny is rewritten, as the subconscious mind integrates these new impressions, guiding present actions and reactions toward more empowering outcomes. This is the threshold of wonder, where the act of revising the past produces tangible shifts in relationships, career, health, and abundance. This is how belief becomes the architect, because what you choose to remember, reframe, and relive internally determines the structure of your external experience. This is where subtlety wields enormous strength, as quiet, internal adjustments ripple outward with subtle yet profound impact. This is how the subconscious is enlisted, taking the revised inner narrative as truth and aligning circumstances to reflect the empowered version of history. This is why persistence is key. For repeated revision and emotional engagement ensures that old patterns are replaced with new, life-affirming ones. This is the awakening of perception, noticing that once you revise a memory, corresponding changes appear in behavior, opportunity, and interaction almost effortlessly. This is how the end is embraced, by mentally living as if the past never limited you, feeling empowered and complete in the present moment. This is where imagination becomes sacred, because it grants the authority to reconstruct not only the future, but also the narrative of your life that you carry forward. This is how consciousness claims dominion, transforming memory into a tool for deliberate creation rather than a chain of limitation. This is why time itself bends as the act of revising the past collapses its influence, freeing the present from its constraints. This is how vision translates into existence, where reimagined experiences catalyze the manifestation of new opportunities and outcomes. This is how the mind's theater becomes the stage of life, and every past scene rewritten internally creates a new reality externally. This is the moment Neville Goddard imparts the profound truth that the past is not a prison, but a canvas for conscious transformation. Ask yourself what happens when you fully inhabit the sensation of having already achieved your desire, and yet something deeper was waiting. And so Neville taught that the secret to manifestation lies in assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And I will reveal how this simple yet profound shift turns imagination into tangible reality. This is how it unfolds, because feeling the end result internally impresses the subconscious mind with certainty, which then arranges external events to match the inner state. This is where the illusion deepens, as most people focus on thoughts or words alone, unaware that emotion is the bridge that carries imagination into form. This is why it matters, for without feeling, assumptions remain abstract, and the subconscious cannot fully respond to incomplete impressions. This is the turning point, when the act of feeling the desire fulfilled transforms the mind from a passive dreamer into an active creator. This is how freedom announces itself, as the inner sensation becomes more real than any external obstacle, dissolving doubt and hesitation. This is why circumstances lose power, because the inner reality you consistently feel overrides the temporary appearances of the world. This is how destiny is rewritten, as each sustained emotional assumption aligns probability, opportunity, and action toward your chosen state. This is the threshold of wonder, when the mind and heart merge, generating a magnetic force that draws circumstances into harmony with your desires. This is how belief becomes the architect, as feeling provides the blueprint, giving the subconscious clear instructions for manifestation. This is where subtlety wields enormous strength, for quiet, deeply felt conviction shapes reality more efficiently than frantic effort or obsessive focus. This is how the subconscious is enlisted, following the emotional cue as though it were a law, aligning people, events, and situations to match your inner state. This is why persistence is key, as repeated emotional immersion ensures the desired reality is firmly planted in the subconscious. This is the awakening of perception, noticing that when you fully inhabit the feeling of fulfillment, opportunities and synchronicities begin to appear naturally. This is how the end is embraced, living as though the wish is already accomplished and radiating that state into every moment. This is where imagination becomes sacred, because the fusion of thought and feeling ignites creation at its deepest level. This is how consciousness claims dominion, directing life with subtle yet unstoppable precision, guided by the emotions you assume. This is why time itself bends. As the moment you feel the fulfilled desire internally, external realization accelerates beyond ordinary expectation. This is how vision translates into existence, because the feeling itself is the command that the subconscious obeys without question. This is how the mind's theater becomes the stage of life, where every emotion assumed deliberately creates the unfolding story of your reality. This is the moment Neville Goddard teaches that to feel it now is to have it already, and the universe moves to match the state you embrace. Picture for a moment the threshold between wakefulness and sleep, and yet something deeper was waiting. And so Neville revealed that the moments just before slumber are the most powerful for impressing the subconscious. And I will reveal how this sacred window becomes a portal for manifestation. This is how it unfolds, because as consciousness drifts towards sleep, resistance weakens and the mind becomes a receptive field for imagined realities. This is where the illusion deepens, as most people drift unconsciously into dreams without guiding them, unaware that deliberate imagination at this time shapes waking life. This is why it matters, for the sleepy state creates a fertile ground where assumptions take root effortlessly and grow into external experiences. This is the turning point, when the imagined scene infused with feeling slips past the conscious gatekeeper into the fertile subconscious. This is how freedom announces itself, as the mind surrenders to the vision you place before it, allowing creation to occur quietly and powerfully. This is why circumstances lose power, because the habitual patterns of doubt and limitation are softened and can no longer resist your inner directive. This is how destiny is rewritten, for each night, as you imagine the end fulfilled with emotion, you set the stage for events to align the next day. This is the threshold of wonder, when the subconscious translates images and feelings into patterns that shape waking experiences. This is how belief becomes the architect, as your repeated nightly assumption solidifies the blueprint for reality's unfolding. This is where subtlety wields enormous strength, for no forceful effort is needed, only the quiet, deliberate act of imagining while fading into sleep. This is how the subconscious is enlisted, taking the nightly impressions as commands to orchestrate the physical world in alignment with your desires. This is why persistence is key, because nightly practice compounds influence, building unstoppable momentum toward manifestation. This is the awakening of perception, noticing that opportunities, insights, and synchronicities emerge naturally after consistent bedtime visualization. This is how the end is embraced, by feeling the desired reality as present during the transition into sleep, as though it has already arrived. This is where imagination becomes sacred, because the boundary between dreaming and creating dissolves under conscious guidance. This is how consciousness claims dominion, quietly directing events while you rest, unseen yet undeniably effective. This is why time itself bends, as what is imagined in the sleepy threshold begins influencing waking moments immediately. This is how vision translates into existence, as each nightly rehearsal imprints certainty on the subconscious that manifests externally. This is how the mind's theater becomes the stage of life, with every dreamlike assumption acting as a rehearsal for reality, ensuring that what is imagined at night blossoms in the day. This is the moment Neville Goddard gifts the ultimate insight, that the mind before sleep is a portal to creation, and what you assume now shapes what you awaken to tomorrow. Can you imagine inhabiting a reality where your desires are already fulfilled, and yet something deeper was waiting? And so Neville taught that living in the end is the practice of mentally and emotionally dwelling in the state of fulfillment. And I will reveal how this transforms perception, action, and destiny simultaneously. This is how it unfolds, because when you assume the end as present, the subconscious molds circumstances to align with that inner reality without hesitation. This is where the illusion deepens, as most people live in anticipation rather than fulfillment, unaware that life responds not to hope but to assumed completion. This is why it matters, for by living in the end, you bridge imagination and experience, collapsing the gap between desire and manifestation. This is the turning point, when every thought, choice, and action aligns with the reality you have already accepted as true. This is how freedom announces itself, because the mind is no longer confined by current conditions but moves effortlessly within the completed state. This is why circumstances lose power, as they can no longer dictate your feelings or outcomes once the inner end state is assumed. This is how destiny is rewritten, for each moment spent living in the fulfilled desire reshapes probabilities and opens doors previously unseen. This is the threshold of wonder, when your inner state magnetizes events, people, and opportunities that reflect the assumed reality. This is how belief becomes the architect, as the conviction of living in the end instructs the subconscious to orchestrate corresponding experiences. This is where subtlety wields enormous strength, because even quietly assuming the end subtly transforms behavior, perception, and interaction with the world. This is how the subconscious is enlisted, translating your persistent inner state into tangible circumstances that appear effortlessly. This is why persistence is key, as consistent immersion in the end state ensures that manifestation follows naturally without force. This is the awakening of perception, noticing that life begins to mirror the imagined reality, with coincidences and synchronicities confirming your inner work. This is how the end is embraced, by feeling and acting as though the desired reality is already fully present, embodying it in every facet of life. This is where imagination becomes sacred, because dwelling in the end is not fantasy, but deliberate creation, a conscious act of shaping destiny. This is how consciousness claims dominion, directing every element of experience in alignment with the fulfilled state you inhabit internally. This is why time itself bends, as the present moment becomes infused with the certainty of future outcomes, making manifestation appear instantaneous. This is how vision translates into existence, as sustained assumption of the end produces real, measurable changes in the external world. This is how the mind's theater becomes the stage of life, where living in the end ensures that imagination and reality merge seamlessly. This is the moment Neville Goddard teaches that the secret to creation is not waiting for it to happen, but embodying it fully now. Consider the possibility that doubt is nothing more than a fleeting shadow, and yet something deeper was waiting. And so Neville taught that doubt must be recognized but not entertained, and I will reveal how mastering doubt transforms hesitation into deliberate creation. This is how it unfolds, because the moment you confront uncertainty with unwavering assumption, the subconscious mind discards contradiction and aligns fully with your chosen reality. This is where the illusion deepens, as most people allow fleeting skepticism to unravel the threads of their inner assumptions before they manifest externally. This is why it matters, for doubt is the subtle barrier that separates imagination from tangible reality, and overcoming it is essential for deliberate creation. This is the turning point, when the conscious mind refuses to validate fear, maintaining focus on the end state with emotional conviction. This is how freedom announces itself, because releasing doubt liberates your inner power, allowing imagination to dictate outcomes without resistance. This is why circumstances lose power, as the inner state becomes dominant and outer conditions no longer provoke uncertainty. This is how destiny is rewritten, for sustained assumption despite doubt shifts probabilities and magnetizes the desired reality. This is the threshold of wonder, when you realize that doubt is merely a signal to strengthen persistence, not a verdict on possibility. This is how belief becomes the architect, as conviction anchored in feeling overrides the whisper of skepticism and instructs the subconscious with clarity. This is where subtlety wields enormous strength, because even a quiet, steadfast focus can dismantle layers of internal resistance without struggle. This is how the subconscious is enlisted, as unwavering assumption forces the mind to ignore contrary evidence and align entirely with the imagined end. This is why persistence is key. For repeated commitment to feeling and assumption gradually erodes internal disbelief until it ceases to interfere. This is the awakening of perception, noticing that when doubt arises, it becomes an opportunity to reinforce focus rather than a reason to abandon vision. This is how the end is embraced, by affirming internally that the desired reality is complete and certain, no matter what appearances suggest. This is where imagination becomes sacred, because mastery over doubt empowers creation at its deepest level. This is how consciousness claims dominion, commanding events and circumstances with unwavering internal authority. This is why time itself bends, where persistent inner alignment accelerates manifestation beyond apparent delay. This is how vision translates into existence, as moments of doubt dissolve into opportunities for deeper conviction, drawing the imagined reality into form. This is how the mind's theater becomes the stage of life, where skepticism is transformed into a tool for strengthening the certainty of creation. This is the moment Neville Goddard imparts that handling doubt is not about eliminating it entirely, but about refusing to let it undermine the felt reality of the wish fulfilled. Now consider this. What if everything you call real is merely the outer reflection of your inner world, and yet something deeper was waiting? And so Neville taught that imagination is not a pastime, but the true driver of reality. And I will reveal how mastering the interplay between inner vision and outer form transforms life itself. This is how it unfolds, because reality is malleable, and what you vividly imagine with conviction dictates the patterns your external world follows. This is where the illusion deepens, as most people mistake appearances for truth, believing the world imposes limits while their imagination quietly shapes the outcome. This is why it matters, for understanding that the unseen is primary allows you to rewrite circumstances rather than react to them. This is the turning point, when every thought, image, and sensation becomes a lever for creation, shifting reality from passive observation to active design. This is how freedom announces itself, because imagination becomes the tool through which your desires take form without external struggle. This is why circumstances lose power, as the inner landscape you maintain outweighs the fleeting influence of outer conditions. This is how destiny is rewritten, for each imagined scenario impresses the subconscious, guiding events to conform to the mental template you provide. This is the threshold of wonder, when the line between what is imagined and what is experienced begins to blur, and miracles appear inevitable. This is how belief becomes the architect, as the consistent practice of assuming inner reality shapes the external world with precision. This is where subtlety wields enormous strength, because even quietly holding an imagined state influences the subconscious far more than effortful control of external events. This is how the subconscious is enlisted, transforming your mental and emotional patterns into the blueprint for tangible outcomes. This is why persistence is key, for repeated focus on desired states ingrains them into the subconscious until manifestation is unavoidable. This is the awakening of perception, noticing that imagined scenarios start reflecting in coincidences, opportunities, and synchronistic encounters. This is how the end is embraced, by accepting that imagination precedes reality and feeling as if the desired outcome already exists. This is where imagination becomes sacred, because it holds the power to construct reality itself from the inside out. This is how consciousness claims dominion, orchestrating events in alignment with the states you habitually assume. This is why time itself bends, as the inner vision accelerates external results beyond conventional expectation. This is how vision translates into existence, with imagination serving as the director and reality as the stage where your assumed scenes are performed. This is how the mind's theater becomes the stage of life, where the subtle art of imagining transforms every thought into a precursor of tangible experience. This is the moment Neville Goddard teaches that the unseen always governs the scene, and mastery of imagination is mastery over all appearances. Picture for a moment a world where belief alone shapes every outcome, and yet something deeper was waiting. And so Neville taught that faith is not wishful thinking, but unwavering conviction in the unseen. And I will reveal how cultivating this certainty transforms imagination into unstoppable manifestation. This is how it unfolds, because faith tells the subconscious mind that your desire is already accomplished, leaving no room for contradiction or doubt. This is where the illusion deepens, as most people rely on proof or external validation, unaware that true creation begins in the certainty of what cannot yet be seen. This is why it matters, for faith is the fuel that bridges imagination and reality, giving internal assumptions the power to impress the world. This is the turning point, when your inner conviction overrides all skepticism, anchoring the wish fulfilled so deeply that external circumstances cannot resist its unfolding. This is how freedom announces itself, as the mind no longer negotiates with chance or circumstance, but moves with absolute assurance toward its intended outcome. This is why circumstances lose power, because unwavering faith establishes the inner state as the dominant reality, bending the outer world to align naturally. This is how destiny is rewritten, for consistent belief programs the subconscious to orchestrate events in harmony with the imagined fulfillment. This is the threshold of wonder, when life begins to reflect the strength of internal certainty in synchronicities, opportunities, and effortless alignments. This is how belief becomes the architect, crafting the framework of reality without physical action or persuasion. This is where subtlety wields enormous strength, because quiet, persistent faith influences the unseen with far greater power than frantic effort or overt control. This is how the subconscious is enlisted, responding instantly to unwavering conviction and translating it into tangible outcomes. This is why persistence is key, as repeated affirmation of faith ingrains the certainty of fulfillment deep within your consciousness. This is the awakening of perception, noticing that when faith is firm, external circumstances increasingly mirror the internal state. This is how the end is embraced, by trusting the unseen completion as if it is already here, and acting accordingly. This is where imagination becomes sacred, because the combination of thought and unwavering faith transforms desires into reality with precision. This is how consciousness claims dominion, commanding life with the silent authority of belief anchored in certainty. This is why time itself bends as events unfold in alignment with your faith, often faster than reason or expectation would allow. This is how vision translates into existence, as the depth of your belief impresses the subconscious to orchestrate reality seamlessly. This is how the mind's theater becomes the stage of life, where faith directs the unseen forces, transforming imagination into inevitable manifestation. This is the moment Neville Goddard imparts that faith is not passive hope, but the dynamic force through which the universe yields to your inner certainty. Can you imagine a life where deliberate exercises of imagination and feeling can transform every aspect of reality, and yet something deeper was waiting? And so Neville provided simple but powerful practices, and I will reveal how consistent application turns theory into tangible manifestation. This is how it unfolds, because visualizing specific scenes with sensory richness impresses the subconscious mind and sets reality into motion. This is where the illusion deepens, as many people attempt creation without structured practice, unaware that repetition and clarity anchor the desired state. This is why it matters, for exercises such as mental movies, feeling the wish fulfilled, and imagining conversations or events prime the mind for success. This is the turning point, when disciplined engagement transforms imagination into an active, potent force that guides every decision and action. This is how freedom announces itself, because through practice, you begin to shape life effortlessly instead of reacting to circumstance. This is why circumstances lose power, as repeated exercises condition the subconscious to align all events with your inner assumptions. This is how destiny is rewritten, for each imagined scene, when rehearsed consistently, forms the template your life naturally follows. This is the threshold of wonder, when mental discipline produces synchronicities, opportunities, and encounters that seem orchestrated by fate. This is how belief becomes the architect, as structured exercises communicate with the subconscious with clarity, precision, and force. This is where subtlety wields enormous strength, because quiet, repeated practice impresses deeply without conscious strain or anxiety. This is how the subconscious is enlisted, translating detailed rehearsals, assumed feelings, and imagined interactions into real-world alignment. This is why persistence is key, as only regular and intentional engagement ensures the desired reality becomes inevitable. This is the awakening of perception, noticing that small daily exercises produce cumulative, exponential effects in external circumstances. This is how the end is embraced, by repeatedly inhabiting the state of fulfillment and allowing it to color every thought, feeling, and action. This is where imagination becomes sacred, because practice creates a direct channel between your inner vision and outer experience. This is how consciousness claims dominion, orchestrating life through disciplined, deliberate internal work. This is why time itself bends, as the consistency of practice accelerates manifestation faster than spontaneous or sporadic effort. This is how vision translates into existence, because structured exercises turn abstract desires into rehearsed, tangible experiences. This is how the mind's theater becomes the stage of life, where deliberate imagination, feeling, and repetition script the unfolding reality. This is the moment Neville Goddard imparts that mastery comes not from luck but from consistent, purposeful practice of these simple yet transformative exercises. Envision a life where every declaration of I am carries the power to shape your reality, and yet something deeper was waiting. And so Neville taught that these statements are not mere words but keys to impressing the subconscious, and I will reveal how the simple phrase I am can transform identity, circumstances, and destiny. This is how it unfolds, because each I am statement establishes a state of being that the subconscious accepts as fact and manifests externally. This is where the illusion deepens, as most people speak I am without awareness, allowing conditioned beliefs to dictate reality rather than consciously designing it. This is why it matters, for the words you affirm about yourself serve as commands to the creative power within, shaping your experiences with remarkable precision. This is the turning point, when intentional use of I am phrases rewires self-perception and aligns external conditions with the identity you claim. This is how freedom announces itself, as you no longer submit to labels, limitations, or past conditioning, but assert your chosen state as present truth. This is why circumstances lose power, because the inner identity projected through I am statements dictates what the outer world must reflect. This is how destiny is rewritten. For repeated declaration of empowered states programs the subconscious to produce circumstances, behaviors, and events consistent with that identity. This is the threshold of wonder, when the conscious mind recognizes that simple statements hold creative authority capable of reshaping all facets of life. This is how belief becomes the architect, as each I am phrase communicates a living, active template to the subconscious. This is where subtlety wields enormous strength, because even quietly affirming I am with feeling sets powerful, unseen forces into motion. This is how the subconscious is enlisted, receiving your statements as absolute truth and arranging reality to match the identity you embody. This is why persistence is key, for repeated and emotionally charged I am declarations solidify new patterns of thought, feeling, and manifestation. This is the awakening of perception, noticing that life responds quickly to shifts in identity expressed through these phrases. This is how the end is embraced, by declaring states of fulfillment, health, prosperity, and love as if they are already complete. This is where imagination becomes sacred, because the combination of words, feeling, and mental assumption transforms identity into the architect of experience. This is how consciousness claims dominion, as the repeated I am statements guide circumstances, opportunities, and relationships toward the assumed reality. This is why time itself bends, for consistent identity assumption accelerates the manifestation of aligned outcomes. This is how vision translates into existence, as the self you declare internally becomes the life you inhabit externally. This is how the mind's theater becomes the stage of life, with every I am statement performing as a director shaping the unfolding narrative. This is the moment Neville Goddard imparts the ultimate power. To declare I am is to create, to command, and to live in the reality of your own choosing. Suppose you discover that imagination is not passive, but a dynamic force that drives reality, and yet something deeper was waiting. And so Neville emphasized that imagining vividly and consistently compels the subconscious to act. And I will reveal how using imagination actively can create tangible outcomes. This is how it unfolds, because every mental image, conversation, or scenario you vividly experience impresses the subconscious, directing events to align with your internal vision. This is where the illusion deepens, as most people mistake imagination for fantasy, failing to understand its causal role in shaping circumstances. This is why it matters, for imagination is the blueprint through which life materializes, and ignoring it leaves creation to chance. This is the turning point, when imagining with emotional intensity converts thought into magnetism, attracting situations and people aligned with the envisioned state. This is how freedom announces itself, because deliberate use of imagination allows you to shape life before circumstances dictate your reality. This is why circumstances lose power, as the inner scenarios you assume become the dominant force, orchestrating outcomes invisibly but decisively. This is how destiny is rewritten, for sustained imaginative practice rearranges events, opportunities, and encounters to match your internal script. This is the threshold of wonder, when visualization combined with feeling accelerates the manifestation of desires into tangible reality. This is how belief becomes the architect, as imagination provides the structural design and feeling activates its construction. This is where subtlety wields enormous strength, because quietly and consistently imagining outcomes imprints them deeply on the subconscious without force or strain. This is how the subconscious is enlisted, translating vivid internal experiences into real-world events, synchronistic encounters, and aligned circumstances. This is why persistence is key, for repeated imaginative enactment ensures the desired reality is deeply anchored and inevitable. This is the awakening of perception, noticing that life begins to mirror the scenarios you actively and consistently create internally. This is how the end is embraced, by mentally living in the reality of the fulfilled desire and feeling its presence tangibly. This is where imagination becomes sacred, because it bridges the invisible world with the visible, turning mental rehearsal into concrete experience. This is how consciousness claims dominion, actively orchestrating life from the inside out, guided by the scenes you imagine. This is why time itself bends, as persistent mental enactment accelerates external manifestation far beyond conventional expectations. This is how vision translates into existence, for each act of imagination is a command to the unseen forces, guiding reality toward the assumed state. This is how the mind's theater becomes the stage of life, where deliberate imagination in action scripts the unfolding of every circumstance and encounter. This is the moment Neville Goddard teaches that imagination is not optional, it is the engine of creation, and using it consciously determines the life you live. Envision a life where steady, unwavering practice becomes the secret force behind every manifestation, and yet something deeper was waiting. And so Neville taught that persistence is the engine of creation, and I will reveal how consistent assumption and mental rehearsal turn imagination into inevitable reality. This is how it unfolds, because repeated focus, feeling, and visualization impress the subconscious deeply, embedding the desired state as an unshakable truth. This is where the illusion deepens, as most people attempt creation sporadically, abandoning it when external results are delayed, unaware that consistency compounds unseen influence. This is why it matters, for persistence transforms fleeting thoughts into enduring assumptions that direct every circumstance in alignment with desire. This is the turning point, when the mind recognizes that repetition with conviction builds the foundation of reality itself, and doubt or distraction no longer holds sway. This is how freedom announces itself, because steadfast practice anchors the inner state, liberating creation from dependence on outside conditions. This is why circumstances lose power, as persistent internal focus overrides temporary appearances and orchestrates life according to assumption. This is how destiny is rewritten, for repeated mental and emotional engagement programs the subconscious to arrange events with precision. This is the threshold of wonder, when regular practice produces synchronistic alignments, unexpected opportunities, and effortless unfolding of desired outcomes. This is how belief becomes the architect, as persistence communicates clarity, intensity, and authority to the unseen forces of creation. This is where subtlety wields enormous strength, because small, daily exercises compounded over time generate profound transformations without struggle. This is how the consciousness is enlisted, accepting repeated impressions as absolute truth and arranging reality to match. This is why persistence is key, as sustained assumption solidifies the inner state into an unbreakable pattern that cannot be swayed by temporary appearances. This is the awakening of perception, noticing that daily attention, repetition, and emotional engagement lead to accelerated manifestation. This is how the end is embraced, by continually dwelling in the feeling of fulfilled desire, knowing that every rehearsal strengthens reality's alignment. This is where imagination becomes sacred, because consistent, persistent practice transforms thought into reality with remarkable certainty. This is how consciousness claims dominion, orchestrating circumstances through the steady force of deliberate, repeated assumption. This is why time itself bends, as daily persistence compresses the interval between imagination and tangible manifestation. This is how vision translates into existence, with repetition acting as the engine driving the external world to mirror internal states. This is how the mind's theater becomes the stage of life, where persistent practice ensures that imagination, feeling, and assumption converge into unstoppable creation. This is the moment Neville Goddard teaches that consistency is not optional. It is the lifeblood of manifestation, turning potential into reality. Can you imagine the invisible energy that gratitude generates, and yet something deeper was waiting? And so Neville taught that cultivating an atmosphere of thankfulness amplifies manifestation. And I will reveal how embracing gratitude transforms ordinary desire into irresistible attraction. This is how it unfolds, because gratitude resonates with the subconscious, signaling that the end result is already appreciated and complete. This is where the illusion deepens, as most people express thanks only for what is visible, unaware that inner appreciation precedes external fulfillment. This is why it matters, for gratitude shifts vibration, harmonizing thought, feeling, and circumstance with the state of fulfillment. This is the turning point, when conscious recognition of blessings, real or imagined, creates fertile soil for new desires to take root. This is how freedom announces itself, because appreciating life, as if wishes are already realized, liberates the mind from resistance and doubt. This is why circumstances lose power, as the magnetic pull of gratitude overwhelms obstacles and reshapes the external world to reflect inner abundance. This is how destiny is rewritten. For sustained gratitude ingrains the desired state into the subconscious, compelling reality to conform effortlessly. This is the threshold of wonder, when feelings of joy and thankfulness amplify creative energy, attracting synchronicities, opportunities, and aligned people. This is how belief becomes the architect, as gratitude conveys certainty and completion, guiding the subconscious to manifest accordingly. This is where subtlety wields enormous strength, because quiet, heartfelt appreciation creates profound unseen effects far more effectively than effort or striving. This is how the subconscious is enlisted, for every genuine feeling of gratitude impresses reality with the certainty of fulfillment. This is why persistence is key, as daily cultivation of thankfulness compounds momentum, ensuring desires manifest naturally. This is the awakening of perception, noticing that life responds to your grateful state, with blessings and opportunities appearing almost effortlessly. This is how the end is embraced, by feeling already complete and expressing thanks for what is imagined as present. This is where imagination becomes sacred, because gratitude connects the inner vision with external reality, accelerating creation. This is how consciousness claims dominion, orchestrating life through the energy of appreciation and acknowledgement. This is why time itself bends, as gratitude compresses manifestation into immediate alignment with your internal state. This is how vision translates into existence, with the magnetic force of thankfulness drawing circumstances and events into harmony with desire. This is how the mind's theater becomes the stage of life, where gratitude acts as the invisible director shaping every scene to reflect abundance and fulfillment. This is the moment Neville Goddard imparts that living in gratitude is not optional, but essential for turning imagined desires into experienced reality. Envision a moment where desire is held lightly, and yet something deeper was waiting. And so Neville taught that detachment is the art of allowing manifestation without force, and I will reveal how releasing attachment accelerates results while maintaining inner alignment. This is how it unfolds, because the subconscious responds to assumed states without the tension of desperation or insistence, making space for effortless creation. This is where the illusion deepens, as most people cling to outcomes, unintentionally creating resistance and delaying fulfillment. This is why it matters, for detachment allows the mind to remain focused on the end while surrendering control of timing and form. This is the turning point, when inner calm becomes the catalyst for external alignment, letting life respond naturally to your assumptions. This is how freedom announces itself, because releasing struggle removes emotional friction, allowing manifestation to flow like water around obstacles. This is why circumstances lose power, as the inner state of trust dominates outer appearances, rendering delay and opposition irrelevant. This is how destiny is rewritten, for detachment reinforces the subconscious impression of certainty while leaving room for the universe to orchestrate events perfectly. This is the threshold of wonder, when holding desire lightly paradoxically strengthens its magnetic pull and clarity. This is how belief becomes the architect, as focused detachment communicates unwavering faith without tension or doubt. This is where subtlety wields enormous strength, because allowing without forcing engages the creative process at its most efficient and harmonious level. This is how the subconscious is enlisted, acting decisively on impressions untainted by struggle or worry. This is why persistence is key, as consistent detachment paired with assumption ensures that manifestation unfolds inevitably. This is the awakening of perception, noticing that when expectation is released, synchronistic events and opportunities appear spontaneously. This is how the end is embraced, by trusting that the desired reality exists already and will reveal itself in perfect timing. This is where imagination becomes sacred, because it guides the subconscious without interference, permitting creation to manifest effortlessly. This is how consciousness claims dominion, orchestrating events from a state of serene assurance and internal alignment. This is why time itself bends, as detachment allows external conditions to adjust rapidly to match the assumed reality. This is how vision translates into existence, with letting go acting as the silent partner of imagination and assumption, ensuring manifestation unfolds naturally. This is how the mind's theater becomes the stage of life, where detachment transforms tension into alignment and desire becomes inevitable. This is the moment Neville Goddard teaches that allowing is not passive. It is the art of trusting, knowing, and enabling the unseen to work in perfect harmony with your inner assumption. Ask yourself what happens when every principle of manifestation is fully integrated, and yet something deeper was waiting. And so Neville taught that mastery is the seamless blending of imagination, feeling, assumption, faith, and detachment. And I will reveal how living fully in alignment with these truths transforms every moment into creation. This is how it unfolds, because when all techniques are harmonized, the subconscious receives clear, unified instructions, and reality follows effortlessly. This is where the illusion deepens, as most people practice in isolation or partially, unaware that integration amplifies power exponentially. This is why it matters, for mastery is not simply knowing the principles, but embodying them continuously until every action, thought, and feeling reflects the desired reality. This is the turning point, when life ceases to be reactive and becomes a fluid reflection of your inner assumptions. This is how freedom announces itself, because complete integration dissolves resistance, doubt, and misalignment, leaving only creative flow. This is why circumstances lose power, as your internal mastery dictates the unfolding of events with precision, making external obstacles irrelevant. This is how destiny is rewritten, for each aligned thought and emotion programs the subconscious to orchestrate experiences consistent with mastery. This is the threshold of wonder, when life appears effortless and desires manifest naturally in perfect timing. This is how belief becomes the architect, as integrated mastery communicates certainty, authority, and clarity to the unseen forces of creation. This is where subtlety wields enormous strength, because mastery works quietly, invisibly, yet powerfully, shaping reality without effort or force. This is how the subconscious is enlisted, fully attuned to your integrated state, executing the blueprint of your assumed reality flawlessly. This is why persistence is key, for mastery is sustained through continual attention, emotional alignment, and disciplined imagination. This is the awakening of perception, noticing that every circumstance, encounter, and opportunity aligns seamlessly with your inner state. This is how the end is embraced, living entirely as the fulfilled self, knowing every desire is already actualized within. This is where imagination becomes sacred, because it operates in perfect union with feeling, assumption, faith, and detachment to manifest effortlessly. This is how consciousness claims dominion, orchestrating the world in complete harmony with your chosen reality. This is why time itself bends, as integrated mastery accelerates manifestation beyond ordinary expectation. This is how vision translates into existence, with every internal act directly reflected externally, creating life as an ongoing work of deliberate creation. This is how the mind's theater becomes the stage of life, where integration ensures imagination, feeling, faith, and allowing converge into seamless, unstoppable reality. This is the moment Neville Goddard imparts the ultimate truth, that mastery is not a destination, but a continuous, embodied state of creation where life and imagination are indistinguishable, and you become the conscious architect of your existence.